As the 49ers sit and wait for Robert Saleh, more potential defensive coordinator candidates go off the board. Are the Niners ever going to do anything? And if Saleh becomes a head coach, what exactly is the backup plan? We'll talk about that and more on today's Bully Ball Podcast. What is good, everybody? Welcome to the Bully Ball Podcast on the Gold Standard and the Fans First Sports Network. I'm Rob Stats Guerrera, pinch hitting for Jason Aponte, who's out sick today, alongside Steph Sanchez. Steph, I got a problem with your co-host.
What's the problem?
I mean, the day after Chip Kelly gets a ring before Kyle Shanahan, he's a ghost. Where is he?
Duck in the smoke. Classic Jason Aponte.
Suspect. You suspect, Jason. No. Congratulations to Ryan Day and Chip Kelly, both 49ers coaches at one point. I'm old enough to remember when that was a thing. The Chip Kelly regime in San Francisco. They get a ring as Ohio State holds off a crazy comeback from Notre Dame at the end of that game. I wasn't really paying attention to it. And then I saw Notre Dame got a turnover and then they threw a touchdown pass. And I was like, holy crap, is Ohio State going to Shanahan this thing?
Yeah, I didn't watch the game, Rob, but I did catch at one moment where the game was like 21-3 or something. And like, yes, Ohio State was up by a lot. And then I did see tweets that Notre Dame was making a comeback. Apparently it was a lot closer than, many expected Notre Dame would get it to. But ultimately, Ohio State got victorious. So good for them, I guess, unless you're against that. And I really don't care, aside from the fact that they have a lot of great prospects at Ohio State, and Notre Dame does as well. But yeah, I definitely think the 49ers scouts were watching that one closely.
See, Steph is already in prospect mode. You could tell. You have
draft season.
That's right. And you've got a lot on your channel. I know you've already spoken with a couple of incoming rookies, right?
Yeah, I've had a couple on for some interviews, and just keep in mind, I got my draft sheet going, right? And I'll just say this, most, if not all of the people that I interview on my channel have spoken with the 49ers in some capacity throughout the draft process. So keep an eye on that.
We're going to get to the Robert Saleh defensive coordinator stuff in a minute, but I just want to be clear for people that don't know, when you say your draft sheet, what is that for someone that's never heard of it?
So my draft sheet tracks everything pertaining to the 49ers draft you can possibly think of. I mean, for the last month or so, I was tracking which college games the 49ers attended. There's also some practices listed in there as well, which practices they went to. And the big meat of it, is the tracking of who the 49ers are interested in meeting with, and eventually like who they bring in for 30 visits, which that one's the real important one. But if you're interested in seeing who the 49ers are speaking with, then that, gives us an idea of what positions they're maybe looking into most. The draft sheet is where you're going to find that.
Who will the 49ers become
convicted
on before they draft? We will have plenty of time to break all that down. Let's get into the defensive coordinator stuff. Steph, we got news yesterday that should not make 49ers fans happy. And that news is our old friend Trent Baalke is really trying to gum up the works when it comes to 49ers defensive coordinator, because the Jacksonville Jaguars are having everybody back for a second interview. Liam Cohen, Patrick Graham, and of course, Robert Saleh will all return for a second interview for the Jaguars head coaching position. Saleh's second interview is not till Friday of this week, Steph. So that means if the 49ers want to hire him, they're going to have to wait through all of this week before they'll even find out if that's possible. In the meantime, coaching candidates are going to come off the board. They came off the board yesterday. Dennis Allen went with Ben Johnson to Chicago. Lou Anarumo went to Indianapolis. Even John Fossil, the special teams coach, went to Tennessee. So while the 49ers are sitting and twiddling their thumbs, other teams are hiring coaches, and the options for the 49ers are shrinking rapidly.
What I don't understand, Rob, is that the 49ers, it was Kyle who said it at the end of season presser, right? he said that, with all the options that were becoming available at DC, like that's kind of what influenced them moving on from Nick Sorensen, among other things, of course, right? But because there were so many candidates available, they were like, okay, like we have to do this. And he also talked about the fact that they have this time, right? Because they didn't make the playoffs. They get a crack at, getting these interviews done earlier in the process. And it's a good thing. That's an advantage that they have this time around. They are not using the advantage at all. Like, this is nuts to me. For one, they're going after a coach that, has already been part of the 49ers, which is great. Robert Saleh, we all love him, but we know that he was going to get head coaching interest as well. There's still two teams, I think, the Jags are the ones that we keep hearing about, right? I think Raiders would be in play as well. Ben Johnson didn't go to the Raiders, so they're still looking for their head coach. And I believe reports from, the last couple weeks was that Saleh was going to get an interview. I don't know if that eventually ended up happening, but I wouldn't necessarily say he's out of the woods to be the Raiders head coach or in contention for that as well. And then to that point, like the 49ers have only, interviewed two that we know of, Saleh and Deshae Townsend. And I think we can assume like maybe they've had the interview for Brandon Staley as well, because Kyle did say as much that he would get a look. Although I will say this, Mike Silver did say he does not. Oh, no. It was Nick Sorensen that he said he would not expect to be the special teams coordinator. It seems like Brandon Staley definitely still an option for the 49ers if all goes awry and Saleh gets hired as a head coach, which is concerning because it's like, I think you could have always hired Brandon Staley as an option if that's really where you wanted to go. But if you wanted all these other candidates that were available that you told us were these great candidates, why you moved on from Nick Sorensen to begin with, then why are we twiddling our thumbs here?
That is a great point. I forgot about that, Steph. You're 1,000% right. Kyle Shanahan said part of the reason he got rid of Nick Sorensen is because there's better options on the board. And it seems like there's only really one option that the 49ers think is better. And that seems to be Robert Saleh, who they are just sitting and waiting for. As the Big 25, thank you for the super chat, says, Kyle didn't even talk to any other candidates. Now, he did talk with Deshae Townsend of the Detroit Lions, but you need to satisfy the Rooney Rule, and Saleh and Townsend do that for the 49ers. And I'm not saying that Deshae Townsend was not deserving of an interview. That's not what I mean at all. But what I mean is they had to interview somebody other than Robert Saleh because they wouldn't be able to hire anybody if they didn't. And so that's what the 49ers have done. We don't even know that Brandon Staley has officially interviewed, has he?
Right. And, teams have to disclose their interviews. So the fact that we haven't heard that he's officially interviewed, maybe he hasn't, right? But maybe it's one of those things where, hey, if Robert Saleh falls through, like, we'll definitely give you a look kind of thing. We have your card.
This is so weird. So Robert Saleh is telling the Niners, you're my second choice. Yeah, if I can't become a head coach, maybe I'll go with you, right? And the Niners are like, hey, Brandon Staley, if Robert Saleh can't become a head coach, then maybe we'll give you. Like, everybody's going for their second freaking choice here. The Big 25 says Staley will be the new DC, interviewed by nobody. That's true. Anybody out there that needs a defensive coordinator could have hired Brandon Staley. Nobody did. And by the way, Kyle, if Staley was so great, why didn't you just fire Nick Sorensen or demote Nick Sorensen during the year? Like, none of this makes any sense. None of it. And it's annoying and frustrating because they tried to sell us that part of the reason that Sorensen was the coordinator is because when they fired Wilkes, there were no good options. Well, like you just said, they did it nice and early this year, and they were out of the playoffs. So they had as big a window as you could possibly have. And they have chosen to take advantage of it by interviewing exactly two people.
It would be atrocious if after all of this, the 49ers just ended up hiring Brandon Staley because, like you said, they could have even hired him last season to be their defensive coordinator if they really felt like he was the right option for the job. He did get interviewed, right? So clearly he wasn't their favorite, but they liked something about him. Same way they liked Nick Sorensen enough to want to keep him in the building, even after saying, hey, you're not a very good DC, but we like you anyway in some capacity.
Bay Area Baller 18. Actually, I hadn't thought of this. Says Mike Zimmer should be the Robert Saleh backup plan. I hadn't thought of Mike Zimmer. He was on Mike McCarthy's staff in Dallas. Obviously, there is no Mike McCarthy's staff in Dallas anymore. He's not going to be the head coach there. So who knows what's going to happen. I just wanted them to sit down and interview people, get perspective, get analysis, find out what other people think about your roster and your players, and maybe some schemes that you never thought of playing or anything but what they are doing right now, which seems to be nothing. And then the narrative that's funny to me, Steph, is that when I mention all this, the pushback I get from 49ers fans is, you think they're not secretly interviewing people? You think they're not having informal interviews with people? No, I don't. I don't think they are. Like, why would we assume they're doing all the right things behind the scenes when they're not doing any of the right things publicly?
Oof. Yeah. I mean, that's a great point. And, there could have been some conversations that were had that weren't interviews, right? Like Dennis Allen, for example, you could have reached out to Dennis Allen, and at the end of the day, he could have been like, hey, like, I'm going wherever Ben Johnson is going. I've already had those discussions with him, right? So in that sense, they went after the right thing. Just like last season, they did shoot their shot with Bill Belichick and Steve Spagnuolo, right? They did the right things. It just didn't work out for them. But that's why you need to cast a wide net, because not everyone is going to work out. And so I think, and casting a wide net involves not just talking with a few people. I think it means talking to everyone, or, close to everyone that fits your scheme and fits what you're looking for. And yeah, we won't really know what conversations are happening, behind closed doors, phone calls and things like that aren't actual interviews. But I mean, I need to see something. I need to know that you're pursuing something besides Robert Saleh. Like, are they afraid to scare Saleh away by interviewing other candidates because they're putting on a full court press for him and said that they'd make him the highest paid DC? And are they afraid of the optics? Like that Saleh will be like, hey, you must not want me that bad if you're interviewing all these other people. But that's how this process works. I don't think Saleh would even think that. So not sure what they're doing. But yeah, it definitely feels like they have blinders on and focus on just Saleh.
Just like they had blinders on for Kirk Cousins in 2017 and didn't scout Patrick Mahomes. That's the thing. We've seen them make this mistake before. So all these people that want to give them credit for things that we have no proof of, like, okay, but I got to just judge these people for who they are and who they have been. And they have made this mistake before. Brispy Life says, it's good to know the Niners take the same approach to hiring coordinators that they do to scouting quarterbacks. Exactly. See, this is why I like the Twitch fans. They always have the interesting comments. The Unfaithful Perspective. Thank you so much for the super chat. We appreciate every time you support the stream, whether you super chat or not. We see you in here all the time. This regime is terrified of change, personnel changes, extending old stars, affecting my confidence that they can reproduce their past success. Bad tendencies don't exist in a vacuum. It's a good point. I mean, they're so attached to this system, Steph. We got to run our system. We got to get back to running our system. We got to get back to this, back to 2019, evolve, adapt, change, grow. Don't try to do things the way you did half a decade ago.
Yeah, that's one thing that's concerning for me with this team, is that I think Kyle is very safe. And we're going to talk about another topic that I think suggests the same, right? And so I think he's very safe. He likes to be in a comfort zone because it feels safe, right? And so that's the way he's handled the defensive coordinator position, I think, for as long as he's been the head coach of this team. And he doesn't want to change too much about it. Now, I get it to some extent. Like, you have certain stars on this team, Fred Warner, Nick Bosa. You don't want to take them out of their own element. Like, you have a lot of money tied to those players and for many years to come, right? So you do have to build something around those guys, and I think whoever comes in has to understand that. So you're not trying to lift the rug up under players like that when that's what they've been successful in. I get it. I think that's a standpoint where he's coming from. We've said it before, like, if someone like Bill Belichick came in the building, like, hypothetically, right, you let a guy like that change whatever he wants to change, and you don't, make no fuss about it. But with I guess the pool of candidates that are available, like you could kind of have guardrails as to what you want and what you want them to do. And I think that's the way that they want to go. So yeah, I don't like the fact that it always seems like you're going with the safe option, but to some extent I get it.
I don't. What have you got to lose by changing? What you've been doing hasn't been good enough. What have you got to lose? I just, man, and again, I'm not saying they got to hire Dennis Allen. I'm saying just talk to people. That's it. Just sit down and interview somebody you may not even know, like Deshae Townsend, perfect example, right? Maybe they don't want him to be DC this year. That's fine. But guess what? Maybe Saleh takes the job and then he leaves in a year. And then you're like, hey, you know who really impressed me when we talked to him? Deshae Townsend. Maybe let's go talk to him again. And maybe he becomes your DC a year from now. You don't know. You don't know what can happen. There is no harm in taking time to talk, to get to know people, to expand your network, expand your circle. And yet they don't do it. And it's very, very frustrating. And look, maybe they'll change their mind. If Robert Saleh, I mean, here's the thing. And by the way, thanks, Con JKJ, for becoming a YouTube channel member. If you want to become a YouTube channel member, it's less than $3 a month. You get priority comment, response, custom emojis, membership badges. So please and thank you. Support both channels, mine and the 49 Carats channel as well. Let's say Robert Saleh takes the Jags job. Then it's just Brandon Staley, and that's it. That's where we're going. I mean, there's no backup plan ready to go. I haven't heard of them talking to a single college coach. Not a one.
Rob, they didn't even talk to Jeff Ulbrich, who got hired by the Falcons for the same position, defensive coordinator, right? It's not like Jeff Ulbrich, was looking for, the greener side of the field and he went with a head coaching job. No, I mean, he was available as a defensive coordinator and the 49ers didn't even have him in for an interview, which is kind of mind-boggling. And I think points more so to the fact that this is proof that the 49ers aren't interviewing anyone else because they're waiting for Saleh. Because all I was hearing ever since the season ended, even last offseason, was that, Jeff Ulbrich, 49ers, yeah, that makes a lot of sense. There was mutual interest there. They would love to have Jeff Ulbrich. The Jets blocked it last season. But this season he was available. And yet the 49ers did not even interview him. Something is not adding up in this equation. And it's concerning to say the least, because your options are dwindling. Do you think that some candidates are not wanting to take this 49ers job, whether it's DC or special teams? This is now going to be the fourth season where the 49ers have a different defensive coordinator. Now, the last two seasons, it's because you've let go of your defensive coordinator after one season. Has that suddenly made it undesirable? And I'll also add this, we got to take into account, it may not seem like a big deal to us, but it's very much a big deal, I think, to others who are talking money and contracts with teams. People don't want to pay California taxes. If they have options for another city that it's way less and you're going to end up getting more money, then, I think that does go into account for some people. So suddenly has this job, become a little less desirable for some people?
I think the taxes thing could be like a tiebreaker, but I think that only comes into play if you're really splitting hairs. That's just my personal opinion. I don't know. I don't ever make the amount of money that it would matter to me that much, quite frankly. But I do, and I talked about this in the past. I don't know if this is the most attractive job. I don't know how fun Kyle Shanahan is to work with, number one. Number two, the expectations are sky high. Steve Wilkes was third in points and eighth in yards and got fired. If you told me whoever the 49ers defensive coordinator hired, well, let's say it's Brandon Staley, right? And you were like, oh no, Brandon Staley, this sucks. And then I was like, but wait, he's going to be third in points allowed per game and eighth in yards allowed per game. You'd be like, damn, okay. I'll take that. I'm super happy with that. They fired the last guy that did that. And they fired him knowing that there weren't any good coaches left to replace him with. So I'm not sure how attractive this job is. That's why when Tyler asks, Rob, where is this team going? I don't know. They seem to have a plan for what it's worth. I just think it's a crazy ass plan.
it's only one plan. And so, like, if everything goes to plan, it'll be good. But if it doesn't, it could be catastrophic. And that's like it, there's no in between. There's no in between, Rob. Like, and that's the concerning thing. Like, this team does have a direction, that it does have somewhere they want to go, but like they never prepare for when it doesn't go that way. I mean, we know things don't always go perfect. Look at this season. Look at this season. Like, things did not go perfectly. You know, you can't always adapt to those changes, and you know, you get the results that you got. And yeah, that's a concerning thing. I really hope that things work out that the way the 49ers want them to. It's just so hard to see that right now.
And let's assume that it does, right? Let's assume that Robert Saleh doesn't take the Jags job because he doesn't like Trent Baalke and no one else hires him, and he becomes the 49ers defensive coordinator again. Great. Come on home. Robert Saleh's back. Everything's fine. Steph, they don't have the personnel to run the system that Robert Saleh wants to run. They don't have 4 defensive linemen that can get pressure on the quarterback consistently so they could leave 7 back in coverage. They don't. It's not there. They got one guy that could get pressure, Nick Bosa, and that's it. So let's say even if they get Saleh, you got to get at least 3, 4 more defensive linemen in here to run the system that he wants to run, that they're so desperate to get back to.
Regardless of who your DC is, like, that is a need. You know, it's not just about Robert Saleh. You have to bring in more for your trenches, both on the defensive side and offensive side, you know, if we're being frank. But yeah, definitely on the defensive side, you got to shore up that line, regardless of who your DC is. But like, I mean, Saleh did that with the Jets, right? Like, what did the Jets really have before he got there? I mean, he has experience with it. And certainly with the 49ers, he has experience on what it takes and the personnel you need. So I think they'd be able to get that back. But, you know, regardless of who the DC is, that's going to be something that they need to address.
You know who would be a great addition to the 49ers defensive line? That would be a certain pass rusher that right now is in Las Vegas. I know
Max
you saw
Crosby.
This. I know you saw this stuff.
Max?
I didn't even know that this was like a thing, but we're sitting around watching football, and all of a sudden, Diamondor Lenore drops the Max Crosby would look crazy in a Niners jersey. And I know for me, I was like, wait, what? Is that a thing? Is he on the market? Like, holy crap, where did this come from? I mean, I'm just going to say the obvious thing. That would be fucking amazing. Like, yes, please. I will take Diamondor Lenore. You want the 11th, or I will take Max Crosby. You want the 11th overall pick? Here you go, Vegas. You can have it. You can have that. I'll throw in another pick. Like, if you get Max Crosby and Nick Bosa on the same defensive line, then maybe you could have Brandon Staley as a defensive coordinator. It might not even matter.
Yeah, that's definitely true. And yeah, it's probably a long shot, right? Like, we know that. And it is not the first or the last time that a player, you know, tweets something outrageous of another player where it's like, hey, like, come to my team kind of thing, you know, recruiting, even if it is outlandish. But yeah, I mean, if the 49ers could find a way to swing it, we know they've been aggressive before in the past. And I mean, Max Crosby is the kind of player you would want to be aggressive for. Absolutely. So I don't know if the Raiders would do it, but if you make it enticing enough, I definitely think you probably could. Because, like, I mean, they need to rebuild, right? You're going to have a new coach coming in. It's not going to be the exciting coach like Ben Johnson that you wanted, but, you know, you need to completely rebuild that team. And, you know, maybe Tom Brady is thinking of ways to do that, and other guys in the front office. So I don't know, more picks sometimes is the way to do that. So maybe it would be enticing to them, but I don't know. He definitely deserves better than what he's gotten in Vegas so far.
Yeah, he said he wants success and stability. Well, since Max Crosby's coming into the league, he's had 3 head coaches and 3 general managers. 49ers have had 1 head coach and 1 general manager since Crosby came into the league. He's only played in 1 playoff game. since he's come into the league. The 49ers have played in 12 playoff games. So I'm just saying, Max, you want success and stability, it's in San Francisco.
As we're talking about the instability at defensive coordinator, but sure.
Hey, it doesn't matter. Whoever they throw in there, they've made the playoffs. I'm just saying we have stability at the two most important positions. I would love it. The 49ers, I bet they'd ask. Max has no guaranteed money left in his deal. He's got 2 years left, so they're going to have to rework the contract regardless of where he plays. I'm sure he's going to want a new deal. They're not shy about taking big swings. As much as we bash the 49ers for this coaching thing, they're going to at least look into it. They may not do it, but they, I'm sure, will turn over those rocks if they want to turn them over. They're very good at being aggressive and proactive when it comes to personnel decisions, Steph. They are not very good at being aggressive when it comes to football decisions, specifically on fourth down. You told me before we started you were noticing my tweets during the playoff games. I was losing my mind watching all these teams go for it on fourth down and knowing that Kyle Shanahan will never be that. He will never be that aggressive. And I really think that these playoffs were like a new era in the NFL. Like the days of fourth down and punt and kick the field goal, like they're over. It's a 4-down league now.
I'm sitting there, watching these playoff games this weekend, some pretty good matchups. I'm having fun doing it, and I go on Twitter and, people reacting about the game. And, I see Rob reacting in anger about things that the 49ers aren't doing as it pertains to watching these games and things that are reminding him and pissing him off about what the 49ers don't do. And I'm just like, Jesus, man, give it a rest. Like, we're just trying to have fun here. I just want to enjoy these games without talking about Brock Purdy, without talking about Kyle Shanahan and all these different things. But, I'll entertain your thought. There is something to, Kyle Shanahan not being aggressive. And again, what did we talk about just a second ago with Kyle liking to be safe, liking to be comfortable? I do think that in those decisions, that definitely comes into play. He goes with the safe option, and he will even explain it as such in most of those situations. I think there was a point in time where you wouldn't argue too much against that. But I think the NFL has changed dramatically in the last few years where it's way more acceptable to go for it on fourth down. Not only is it acceptable, it's rewarding. I mean, you see what the Ravens have done with Lamar Jackson for the last few years and how much success they've had with it. The Commanders this season are having the most success. They have an 87% fourth down conversion rate this season. In fact, I saw this, Rob. 4 teams in the NFL have a fourth down conversion rate of 70% or above. All 4 of those teams are playing in the conference championships.
Interesting.
Being aggressive gets you somewhere, And, you can look at a team like the Lions where being aggressive sometimes backfires. A coach like Kyle Shanahan would look at that and be like, see, that's exactly why I am not aggressive. And sure, at times you can make that argument. It's always the decision of when is it the right situation to do it, because certainly not every fourth down is one that you want to go for. There are situations in which it makes more sense than others. But like the Lions, I don't think they really regret going for it on fourth down. Like, I don't think they regret those decisions. I don't think Dan Campbell ever would. Like, you got to be okay with living and dying by those decisions. And that it's just something that I don't think Kyle Shanahan is wanting to do. On the other hand, he would rather, sit there and explain why he didn't go for a decision like that in most cases.
But here's the thing that drives me nuts, Steph. Everyone says, oh, some of those fourth down decisions, the Lions in the NFC Championship game, they backfired, right? It bit him in the ass. So does kicking the field goal. And people never look at it this way. And perfect example, the end of the Bills game, right? Bills-Ravens, Buffalo is driving down the field. They get to the 2-yard line. They are up by 5 points. They get to the 2-yard line. It's 4th down. Instead of going for it and scoring a touchdown and ending the game, they kick the field goal. It keeps it a 1-score game. It makes it an 8-point game. And what happens? Baltimore goes right down the field. They score the touchdown, and they should have had the 2-point conversion, but Mark Andrews drops it. The field goal that Buffalo kicked backfired on them. It kept the Ravens in the game. And the worst thing that happens if Buffalo doesn't get it on the 4th down is that Baltimore takes over down 5 on the 2-yard line with 98 yards to go. Like, so people don't ever look at kicking the field goal or being conservative as, quote, backfiring when it doesn't work. And that's the thing that, like, Kyle or any of these people will never think about. And I just think, especially as the quarterbacks get more mobile and more talented, the idea of 4th down, oh my God, we can't possibly go for it. It's too scary. That's over. It is over. And it's something that you're going to have to prepare for as a defense from now on.
And that's what I'm saying. Like, I think, there was a point in time where you wouldn't want to be that aggressive, and it was seen as foolish to be that aggressive. And now you're seeing a changing of the guard, and there's so many teams now that go for it on 4th down consistently, right? In the right situations. A lot of those teams have powerhouse offenses. I mean, in this season, at least, the 49ers did not have that, so I get it why this season maybe he would have been a little more hesitant in those decisions, although there's always the desperation 4th down that you have to go for, and he did at times this season. But yeah, I would, and this goes back to the front runner, conversation. I think I think you have to be the team that goes for the win, goes for the kill, and not just stand back and wait for the game to come to you, right? Mm-hmm. And so I would like to see more of that from the 49ers, because I do think at full health and, when they're rolling on all cylinders, we know that this team is capable of, getting the 4th down. And let's just – it also challenges the defense so much more. Like, and that creates mistakes on the defense's part. Right. Where then again, like, it is advantageous to you to go for it. Right. At the very least, sometimes like you just want to draw them off sides. Right. And you get that 1st down, like that in itself also aggressive, which, he does that at times too. But go for it after that. Right. So like, yeah, I think I want to see it more. I think hopefully next season we do, when the 49ers are fully healthy. Definitely, like, when you have Christian McCaffrey on the field, that's something I think they should definitely go for.
You should go for it if you have Christian McCaffrey. You should go for it if you don't have Christian McCaffrey. There's no justification. If your offense stinks, then you should be going for it, because you don't know if you're ever going to get back to scoring range ever again. So you should go for it. If you have an awesome defense, you should go for it anyway, because if you don't get it, your awesome defense is going to stop them. To me, if it's 4th and 4 or less, it should be go for it every time, especially if you're at like your own 40 or beyond, especially then. I mean, it's wild. Nick Saban was on the pregame show for the national championship talking about it, and I thought he brought up a good point. He said most defensive players are just wired that when they make a stop on 3rd down, they hold up the fist and they say, that's it, 4th down. And they think our job is done. Exactly. And then all of a sudden it's like, wait, what? We got another play. We're not done. We're staying on the field. All right, wait, what's going on? And then a lot of defensive coordinators are not ready for it too. So they don't have a call dialed up, ready to go, because they're like, they thought the job was done. And then all of a sudden they have to make a call. So he actually started drilling that and preparing for that in practice with Alabama when he was there. And I think it's a great point. I think there's a bunch of NFL guys that are not ready for this yet. Niners need to jump on board, but as the Big 25 says, Kyle wants things ran his way and his way only.
And as we're talking here, I also got a response from GV on Twitter. If you got that tweet, you could put up.
Did you private chat to me?
Yeah. He said, can you remind Rob that the Bills won the game? His assumption that going for it on 4th down somehow guarantees a touchdown is also ridiculous. Teams do get stopped sometimes. 7 better than 3, better than 0.
That's not what I said. I just said, even if you don't get it, you're pinning the Ravens 98 yards away and they need a touchdown. The Bills won the game because Mark Andrews dropped the 2-point conversion. Like, if you're saying, oh, everything was great because we knew that Mark Andrews was going to drop the 2-point conversion, like, okay, congrats. You're better at this than I am. But it should have backfired. The Bills got lucky that it didn't cost them. All they did by kicking the field goal was guarantee they wouldn't lose in regulation. That's it. That's all that kicking the field goal does. You get the touchdown there, the game is over. It's a 2-score game with like 2 minutes to go, whatever it was. I can't believe that people don't see it. To me, it seems like it's obvious. I saw something in the chat. The Jags are offering Liam Cohen the head coaching job. I didn't see that.
So I just saw this tweet from Rick Stroud, and I'll send it to you, Rob. It says, Bucks preparing for Liam Cohen to be offered Jaguars job. I don't know if that means that it's because they're hearing something or they're just preparing something that the 49ers wouldn't be familiar with, a plan B.
Right. It's hard. It's going to be harder and harder to get those plan Bs. Let me tell you. Rick Stroud says, yeah, they're preparing for Liam Cohen to be offered the job. That's probably good news if you want Robert Saleh back in San Francisco. I feel like Rick's been covering
phenomenal news.
Yeah, Rick's been covering the Bucs for a long time, so I don't think he would throw that out there without knowing something. Oh, I'm sorry. I thought I threw it up on the screen there. Good. Great. That would be, at least then the 49ers could get their number one choice because I'm terrified of the backup option. Let me ask you this. If they get Robert Saleh, are they going to let him pick his coaches? Or are they going to make him work with all the same coaches that are already here? Chris Kasarik, maybe even Brandon Staley.
Most of the guys who were here when Robert Saleh was DC. So I think he'd be fine with that. I don't know what would happen with Brandon Staley, right? I do feel like part of the reason they brought him in, aside from being assistant head coach, which, whatever that means, was to help Nick Sorensen, kind of be that soft landing spot for him, first time DC and all that, and bringing in someone with experience who could maybe help him in addition to helping with DBs. I do think Saleh would probably want to bring in another guy or two maybe. And yeah, maybe it means the end of Brandon Staley in San Francisco. Not sure, but I don't think there'd be much turnover with Robert Saleh returning. And again, that's probably why the 49ers do like him as an option. It's kind of like you want to keep most everything the same and just change the DC if you could. You already know it's worked with Robert Saleh, so they probably figure this is a good thing. Now, I want to, going back to Rick's post here or article, is that yes, he said the Bucs are bracing for Cohen to be offered the Jaguars head coaching job, possibly as early as Wednesday when he interviews for the second time with the club. So that would be
a growing belief that it's Cohen's job to lose, according to the article. Sorry to cut you off there. It says not only were the Jags impressed by the 39-year-old offensive coordinator when he interviewed virtually a week ago, he's also most equipped to resurrect the career of quarterback Trevor Lawrence. Blah, 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 Baker Mayfield, yada, yada, yada. Who cares about any of that? If you're the Jags, that makes sense, right? You just pay Trevor Lawrence. You're going to want a guy that could get the most out of him. You thought that's what you were getting with Doug Peterson. It didn't work out, but you're in the Trevor Lawrence boat. You're in the Trevor Lawrence business. So maybe that's the way you want to go. Like, because who's Robert Saleh going to hire as offensive coordinator if he comes? I have no idea who he would even take with him, and that's a huge thing. So that could be some good news. Now, I believe he interviews on Wednesday.
Yeah.
The second interview.
It's Saleh's Friday, you said, right?
Yeah, but generally, if you got a guy, the kind of rule of thumb is you don't let the guy leave the building. Like, if you're like, Liam Cohen is awesome, great. We don't care that we have Patrick Graham and Robert Saleh. We're convinced that this guy's the guy. We want to get it done. So we'll see if that happens. If it does, maybe we'll be doing a little breaking news podcast, Steph.
You think they schedule these as much as they can, right? With availability and all that. But do you think they try to schedule these based on their preference? Like, we don't actually know the order of their preference, but Cohen being the first interview of the three certainly, and with this report, would certainly signal that he's their top choice. So, to your point, don't let him leave the building if he is your top choice and that interview happens tomorrow. I think, yeah, like it does kind of feel like he is their top candidate, which absolutely would be the best thing for the 49ers. Now, the question is, does he take that job with Trent Baalke, right, in the building? But
I don't know why you would. Honestly, like I really don't know why you would. He's a snake, man. He did it with Jim Harbaugh. Say what you want about Doug Peterson, whatever. Maybe Doug Peterson deserved to be fired. Jim Harbaugh went NFC Championship game, Super Bowl, NFC Championship game, had one season of 8-8, and they were like, "Oh, you're fired." And it was like, holy, like people are talking about firing Kyle Shanahan now. He's had multiple losing seasons in his career. The worst season Jim Harbaugh ever had was 8-8, and Trent Baalke somehow won a power struggle between Harbaugh and himself.
Are coaches privy to the Trent Baalke thing, though? Like us fans are, particularly us 49er fans are.
No,
like,
I think they are.
You think so?
100%. I think they absolutely are, because there's been so many power struggles. Think about, like, as a coach, all the crap jobs. Your life as a coach until you're a head coach is really hard. You're quality control guy. You're what did Robert Saleh call it? The bitch boy, right? Like you do a lot of crappy jobs. Those were his words before you get to, the higher levels of the profession. So when you get a head coaching job, you don't want your GM to be a snake in the grass doing everything he can, whispering in the owner's ear about how, I got all the right players. The coach is not using them the right way. Like, you don't want someone to take that away from you and boot you back into that crap life. So I think coaches are absolutely aware of it.
All right. I mean, you can hope. I always feel like coaches feel like they're the exception to the rule. I mean, look at Saleh going to the Jets, right? Bad org. You feel like you can change them. And he, except for the quarterback position which eventually loomed large for the Jets, right? And that clearly did not work out. I mean, I think he did a good job building that team, which tells you why he's getting head coaching consideration even after that stint, right?
Mm-hmm.
And so maybe he feels like he could do it, even with a Trent Baalke in the building. But yeah, it can't be ignored that if it ever comes to picking between the GM or the head coach, that owners, for whatever reason, pick Trent Baalke. Like, I don't know what this guy has on owners. It's mind-boggling at this point, but he must be a very charismatic guy or something. Something we don't know about Trent that, execs seem to love.
Yeah, it's this one. I mean, when the 49ers beat is like ragging on you for what you've been able to do, like that's how you know it's bad with Trent Baalke. And we've seen tweets from Kyle Kami and others talking about his only real skill is somehow convincing owners that he's not the problem. So that's not exactly the job I'd be dying to take if I was Robert Saleh. And here's the other thing, Steph. Is he going to get a third head coaching opportunity? I don't know. Not many guys get 3, especially without having any championships in their history. So it's like, if you're Robert Saleh, you got to be real careful about where you choose to go next. You better be set up to succeed. I don't know that you can necessarily say that about Jacksonville.
Which is another reason why I wasn't a huge fan of Robert Saleh being the one and seemingly only choice for the 49ers. Because, he's probably going to leave again in a year or two if he puts together another strong season or two of being defensive coordinator, right? So you have to keep your options open, and not just for, wanting to keep someone around, but like a contingency plan as well. Like that. And that's what I felt like Ulbrich could have been if the 49ers could have hired Saleh quickly, which, I'm sure they tried, but of course he's going to entertain head coaching jobs. I felt like a good succession plan would have been having Ulbrich beneath Saleh, and that would have been perfect for the 49ers, because then you have your 1-2. But they don't have that. And if they get Saleh, cool. Like, you're gonna get them for one season. And I see a lot of fans being like, oh, well, they only need the one season. If they get to the Super Bowl, none of it will matter. Well, cool. If they win the Super Bowl, yeah, like, I agree, nothing matters. That's a big if. Like, let's be freaking honest here. They've been trying at this for a long time. That is no given. So I think to make a decision on the assumption that, yeah, like Robert Saleh, we're going to win a Super Bowl with him in his 1 year back. Like, I can't make decisions like that.
Well, not only that, but you could say that about any decision the 49ers make, right? They should trade all their draft picks for Max Crosby for the next 3 years. Well, that seems crazy. Yeah, but if they make the Super Bowl this year, it won't matter. Like, you could justify anything if you say, well, it won't matter as long as they make the Super Bowl. So you have to be careful of that. And let's be honest, Steph, the Niners' road to the Super Bowl in the NFC, it is getting harder. Okay. The Rams look like they're going to be good. They got a great young defense. The Rams look very good still. We don't know what the Bears are going to be with Ben Johnson and Caleb Williams. The Lions have a good roster. Now, they may take a step back, but who knows? You don't expect them to fall off immediately. They're still to be dealt with. The Packers are still good. The Vikings are still good. The Eagles certainly look like a very, very strong team. Now Jaden Daniels and the Commanders in the NFC East. Obviously, he looks phenomenal. Like, it's going to be damn hard to get to the Super Bowl in the NFC. You're going to need a good coordinator for next year and the year after, the year after.
That's all I want. That's all I want. Because I was just talking about this yesterday on my show. It's like, people think that it's so easy to get to the conference championships every season. And you know why? Because we're currently looking at an outlier in the Chiefs, right? They've done it how many seasons in a row? Like, that is absolutely unheard of. But you know why it's been easy for them is because they have an elite head coach, they have an elite quarterback, and they have an elite defensive coordinator. And their special teams has been good too. Like, everything about their team has been elite, right? So the 49ers have some of that, but if they put it all together, yeah, it'd be easy. It's actually impressive how many times Kyle Shanahan has been able to go to the NFC Championship every time the 49ers have made the playoffs, right? So that's difficult to do. I think people forget how difficult that is. But yeah, I mean, you definitely need an elite defensive coordinator. And at this point, I'm just like, just give me like a good one, a solid one, right? Just to get back in there.
For all the talk about Detroit and how good they were and how good Dan Campbell was and how good Ben Johnson was, the Dan Campbell, Ben Johnson, Aaron Glenn little triumvirate there, their entire legacy is 2 playoff wins. 2 playoff wins and blowing the biggest lead in the history of the NFC Championship game. So before you want to kick Kyle Shanahan out the door or act like making all these NFC Championship games and Super Bowls doesn't matter, look at how freaking hard it is to get there. The Ravens billy clubbed people this year. They kicked the hell out of people. It's almost impossible to play quarterback better than Lamar Jackson played quarterback this year. They didn't even reach the conference championship game. So let's not just discount this. Doesn't mean we should be satisfied that they didn't win a Super Bowl. That's not what I'm saying. I'm just saying, holy crap, it's hard to do. And we've got someone that has done it a shitload of times. And maybe we shouldn't get rid of that guy just yet.
Exactly. I'm glad that, some of us are remembering that. And hopefully you guys hear us out, because for the people who are, saying Kyle should be on the hot seat because of this season and all that, I simply cannot agree with it. I really can't. And it's tough. It's really tough out there. And there's been times where this team, Kyle, has made it look easy, right? So let's try again. Let's try again next season. And hopefully it's with, like I said, a really good defensive coordinator and even, a better special teams coordinator, which shouldn't be hard to find. Quite frankly, Rob, I've been more pleased with their special teams coordinator search so far than I have been with their DC, which is crazy. But again, it could all work out if what we're hearing about the Jags, keying in on Liam Cohen, that would be best case scenario for the 49ers, and they will have lucked into this weird plan of theirs having worked out.
Right. The best case scenario out of the scenario that they put themselves in, which is basically Robert Saleh or bust. You're right about special teams. It's good that they're interviewing people. To me, that just goes to show they don't necessarily know who they want for that job. They clearly know who they want for DC, and we will see if it works out. Please give us a rating on Apple Pods. It really helps people discover the channel. I would really, really appreciate it if you could do that. Like and subscribe to both YouTube channels, the Gold Standard YouTube channel and Steph's YouTube channel, 49 Carats. If you want any information on who the 49ers are looking at with rookies and talking to and scouting, please check out Steph's sheets. They will make you a much more informed fan on who the 49ers are going after. It is a labor of love for you, Steph, I'm sure. I know you're updating that thing constantly.
Every day.
So go and check it out. Enjoy the rest of your Tuesday, everybody. Shame on Jason Aponte for running away from the smoke, and we'll talk to you tomorrow.
Peace.